If someone had walked past the Moore house on a quiet Iowa street in 1912, they would have seen nothing unusual. Curtains drawn, doors locked, a family asleep inside. By morning, 8 people would be dead, and the killer would vanish so completely that more than a century later, no one knows who did it. This is the story of the Villisca Axe murders. On the night of June 9, 1912, the small town of Villisca was settling in after a Sunday evening church service. Josiah Moore, a successful businessman, returned home with his wife Sarah and their 4 children. 2 friends of the family, Lena and Ina Stillinger, came along for a sleepover. It was the kind of wholesome night no one ever forgets. Ice cream socials, hymns, children laughing as they walked home in the dark. Sometime after midnight, someone entered the Moore house. There was no sign of forced entry. The killer began upstairs. Josiah Moore was struck first, likely while asleep. The weapon was an axe taken from Josiah's own shed. Each victim was hit with brutal force, most of them multiple times, often so violently their skulls were crushed. Sarah Moore was killed next, then the children one by one, while they slept in their beds. Downstairs, the 2 visiting girls were murdered last. What makes this crime especially disturbing isn't just the violence. It's what the killer did afterward. Mirrors and windows were covered with cloth. A slab of raw bacon and a bowl of water were left on the kitchen table. The axe was wiped clean and placed carefully against a wall. Then the killer washed up and quietly walked away. The bodies weren't discovered until late the next morning, when neighbors noticed the house was unusually silent. A concerned friend tried the door and found it locked. When authorities finally entered, chaos followed. Curious townspeople flooded the house, trampling through rooms, touching evidence, contaminating the scene beyond repair. It was one of the worst crime scene mishandlings in American history. Suspicion spread fast. One of the first suspects was a traveling minister named Reverend George Kelly. He had been in Villisca that night, was known to suffer from mental instability, and reportedly had an unhealthy interest in young girls. He even confessed, then recanted, twice. Despite bizarre behavior and inconsistencies, Kelly was acquitted. Another suspect was Frank Jones, a powerful local businessman who had a bitter feud with Josiah Moore over money and employment. Some believe Jones hired someone to carry out the murders. Others suspected Jones himself, but there was no proof. Then there were the theories that chilled people the most. Across the Midwest, axe murders were happening in eerily similar ways. Entire families killed in their sleep, mirrors covered, the weapon belonging to the victims. Some believe Villisca was the work of a serial killer who was never caught. If that's true, Villisca wasn't an isolated tragedy. It was one stop on a killing spree. To this day, the Moore house still stands. People who've stayed there report footsteps, voices, children crying, and doors slamming on their own. Paranormal investigators claim the house feels heavy, oppressive, like something never left. 8 people died in that house. No one was ever convicted, and whoever picked up that axe walked free, into the dark, and out of history. Some crimes fade with time. This one refuses to stay buried.